All right. Can everyone see this? Can
I can
everyone?
see it. Everybody else we asked to go on mute. So
That's true. You're the
they
only person that matters then.
get an A+
Yes, I can
for,
see it. I
for
can see it.
instructions.
Perfect. Perfect. Oh, let me just add, we got a couple more people jumping in here. Cool. Okay, great. So, my name is Janelle, and I'm a confidence coach. I own a company, Next Level Confidence, and I just moved to San Diego, California, which is very exciting. Um, I'm newly married, got married in August, and we have an Australian Shepherd puppy that is a lot of work right now, but very cute and very sweet. And my favorite things are working out and being in the sunshine and moving my body. So if you guys want a free 10-day challenge, you can go to my website, nextlevelconfident.com, and you can grab that free 10-day confidence challenge there. It's basically, daring you to do things you wouldn't usually do, like going somewhere alone or wearing an outfit you wouldn't usually wear, so that way you get used to being uncomfortable.
Mhm. Hi, everybody. My name is Mindy Henderson. I am in Austin, Texas, and I'm a motivational speaker, a writer, and an accountability coach. I have over 30 years of public speaking experience. In fact, I gave my first speech at the age of 4 as the poster child for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. It was a terrible speech, but I did tell a joke at the beginning to kind of warm up the crowd. So there was that. I, for the past about 20 years, have worked in the high-tech industry and recently pivoted to pursue what I'm calling my passion career of all of the things that I just mentioned. I'm a big self-development nut, love all things self-development, and kind of began that journey about 25 years ago when my dad asked me what my goals for my life were. And I looked at him like he was crazy and had never thought of such a thing. So I've been married for about 16 years. I have one daughter, and I'm a little bit obsessed with pugs and golden retrievers. In fact, a pug may just make an appearance in the presentation before we're all done.
Yes. I hope the pug does. My dog will not be joining because she would be eating basically everything in this office, and I wouldn't be present for this phone call.
She's so cute, though. We would forgive her.
That's true. She's so cute. Okay. Mindy, you want to tell us about our agenda today?
Absolutely. So basically 3 sections that we're going to dive into today. First up is health and relationships, because really you have to put your oxygen mask on first. So, with the times that we're living in right now that are sort of beyond weird and wonky, and we're all kind of figuring it out together as we go, you really have to take care of yourself. So that's where health and, both your physical and your emotional health come into play. Relationships are super critical because of, the social distancing and the quarantining that some people are doing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then, once your house is in order in those couple of areas, you're really set up pretty well to continue on to be just as productive and profitable in your business world, if not more productive and profitable than you previously were.
So good. Yeah, so let's start with talking about physical health.
Great. So this is kind of my favorite of all of the health topics. Gratitude is something that's really played a huge part in my life, and it's been sort of a transformative thing, and really harkens back to the days when I was a kid. And the focal point of my story is really kind of my disability. And my parents raised me, basically in my hard moments when I was struggling with things, to teach me to count my blessings. And that was really where my gratitude practice starts. And there's all kinds of science behind gratitude practices, and I've seen it in action in my own life. I think Sean Aker is one of the gurus out there that really has done a lot of the research and the studies about gratitude practices and how you can really kind of rewire your brain. If you're doing things like writing down 3 to 5 things every single day, I should say 3 to 5 unique things every single day. That's the rub. And what that really does for you is, if you know that you're going to have to spend your days looking for pieces of gratitude to write down, you're going to spend your days looking for things to be grateful for. And so for me, this is something that I started being really intentional about a couple of years ago. And what I've seen is that it's really kind of changed my autopilot. And when bad things come up, when a problem hits or a challenge arises, so often our kind of knee-jerk autopilot reactions are to go to those more obvious negative emotions that come along with those things, like frustration, sadness, anger. And instead, it rewires your autopilot to be much more constructive and positive, so that you can jump in and start, cleaning up the mess, so to speak.
Mm.
So meditation is another thing that I've really, honestly, I started doing it probably 5 years ago. I was terrible at it, and I probably had the same thoughts as a lot of you did or do or may have about it, because when you meditate, when you get still and you get quiet, you hear all of the voices in your head. And I thought that I was doing something wrong. And so it was a real struggle for me to put this into practice in a way that worked for me. And I've heard people over the years talk about meditation. And first of all, it may not really be what you think it is. It's not this thing where you go into, this trance kind of state. And I don't think that that's really the expectation that you want to have around it. It's really just about getting quiet, getting still. And I heard someone just the other day describe it kind of perfectly. He said that, when you do get quiet and you do get still, of course you hear all of the voices and the dialogue that's going on in your head. It's been there all along. That's what your brain does all day long. It's just that in times of meditation, you're getting quiet enough to hear those things. And so it's really about those moments of quiet. And there's an app that I recommended in the resources that can help you get started. But for me, meditation is one of those things that's about doing what I can with what I have. I don't have, as a disabled person, I don't have a lot of options available to me in the realm of exercise. And so meditation is something that I can really do to help to combat that anxiety and that stress that can be so toxic in your body. And there's so much about meditation that can improve your overall health and wellness and physiology. It can increase the neuroplasticity in your brain, which is basically your brain's ability to change structurally and functionally on the basis of environmental input. It can reduce blood pressure. It can slow down or reduce some of our neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. Helps in decision making. So a lot of really great physical benefits to meditation. Sleep. I was honestly one of the naysayers about sleep a few years ago, and then I started to really research it and to understand, just like with meditation, how much impact sleep really truly does have on our bodies. And let's just give the pug a wave hello as she makes her cameo. But, I think we've all heard at some point or another in our lives that most adults need somewhere between 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. It varies a little bit from person to person, but that's kind of the standard. And what it boils down to is that sleep deprivation, if we're looking at what it does to our health, whether you're in the sort of negative or the positive in terms of your sleep deposits in your life, it leads to increases in two different hormones, depending on whether you're deficient or in a good place in your sleep patterns. And those things can be either appetite suppressing or appetite stimulating. So that's the first thing that I was actually really surprised to hear that sleep had an impact was on our weight issues potentially. Concentration is big. Too little sleep can actually have the same effect on us as alcohol intoxication. And then what was, again, really, really interesting for me to discover was that, the increased inflammation markers and things that are affected in our bodies by proper sleep. So things like inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, and other inflammation-related issues are things that can be very directly affected by the quality and the amount of sleep that we're getting in our lives. It also affects your risk for heart disease, for diabetes, for stroke. So again, sleep is one of those things that I don't know that people oftentimes take as seriously as they should. Nutrition. This is a big bucket, and there's a ton to say, obviously, about nutrition. We all know that a healthy diet is important for our health. And we've probably all also heard that our best source of nutrition really comes from food rather than supplements. Of course, if there are areas where you're struggling or that you're not getting as much in the way of nutrition as you probably should, go ahead and use those supplements. But just wanted to call that out as a reminder that the best thing that you can do for yourself is to do something like eat the rainbow, as kind of corny and cliche as it's gotten. There's a reason for that. And the more color and diversity of color that you see in your diet, the more that you're getting in the way of nutrients and vitamins and things. The last three things I wanted to call out specifically because they're particularly significant in terms of a healthy lifestyle. Sugar is one that I know that a lot of people really, really struggle with. Sugar addiction is real, and also the consequences to our health if we're taking in too much sugar is also very real. In fact, fructose is strictly metabolized by the liver, which leads to that fatty liver disease, or the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So direct links to that, obviously abdominal obesity, and over the course of time, high cholesterol. I also heard it said years ago, I was reading a health book that Muriel Hemingway wrote, and she talked about the links between sugar and cancer, and described it like sugar is really kind of food for cancer cells, which has always kind of stuck with me and that I found interesting. Vitamin D, I put on the list because it's something that could be being impacted by our current situation. Again, with the quarantining that people are doing, with the social distancing, we know that vitamin D is something that we get from the sun. And a lot of us may be cooping ourselves up in our homes, myself included, and not getting the exposure to the little bits of sunlight that our bodies really need to take in that vitamin D that does things like helps us build and protect our bones. Vitamin D is actually relatively tricky to get from food. It's best gotten by the sun. But if you're going to add things to your diet to increase your levels of vitamin D, your best options are fatty fish, things like salmon, egg yolks, cod liver oil, yum, and mushrooms, interestingly enough. And then finally, I wanted to mention carbs because, again, carbs is one of those things that really gets a bad rap these days. And so many people are so anti carb. But what the distinction that I wanted to make is the difference between unrefined and refined carbs. And that's really the key. Your unrefined carbs is what you want. And those are actually incredibly beneficial to our bodies. It's the whole grains, the vegetables, the beans, the fruits. And those things will help us do things like reduce our cholesterol, help in our weight loss journeys, help keep us full, blood sugar, triglycerides, all of those things are improved dramatically by actually taking in those unrefined carbs.
Okay, my turn. So you guys, I want to let you know if if you've started to take notes and your wheels are turning, we will be setting one SMART goal at the end of this part, which is physical health. So I want you to be thinking, what could my goal be? What would it be? Something with sugar? Would it be something with getting a certain amount of vitamin D? Sleep, any of the things that Mindy just discussed, and then any of the things I'm about to discuss. So just be thinking about that to yourself as we go along here. So, morning routine. I am a huge, huge, huge believer of having a morning routine, but I wasn't always like that. For the longest time, I was the type of person who I I worked at an office in Fort Collins, Colorado at 8:30 a.m. and I lived 1 mile away. It was awesome. And I drove that mile, by the way. And I would set my alarm for 8 a.m. and 8:05. And I would get out of bed at 8:05 and I would have 20 minutes to brush my teeth and like put on a little bit of makeup and throw on an outfit, grab something for lunch and just scramble out the door. And by the time I was driving, I would just be like, your heart rate is up, you're just anxious. And I've worked with so many clients who say that they have the exact same thing where they're just constantly rushing in the morning. They don't have this like peaceful morning. But whenever I ask my clients, what does your ideal day look like? Like in your dream life, where do you live? Are you in the mountains? Are you by the ocean? Are you, in the forest? I ask, like, what does your morning look like? And almost every client I've ever had says, I just picture myself like waking up and having this slow morning where I'm just sipping my coffee and maybe reading a good book or like writing in my journal. And I'm like, well, maybe you can't move to the ocean or the mountains or the forest, but you probably could start implementing this whole slow drinking of your coffee ahead of time. So I created a mindset module called the morning routine. And the main things that I put on here is one, stop snoozing your alarm. I have a rule of no snoozing more than 10 minutes. Am I perfect on that rule? No, I'm not perfect on that rule. I'm not perfect on any of these, and no one is, but it's really about creating a routine that you stick to, like 90% of it. It's not about perfection, it's about creating that routine. So the next one that I'm huge on is not using my phone for the first 30 minutes of every day. So many people wake up and they are checking their cell phone and they are scrolling through social or checking their email, and so many people tell me this is the hardest one for them. All of my clients are like, I just like checking my phone first thing. And, it's not helpful for your brain. Number three, making your bed. That's another one that maybe you do it, maybe you don't, but it makes you feel so successful to start your day off with making your bed. Number four, chug 16 ounces of water. The reason why you do that is to boost your metabolism by 33%. So, you dehydrated yourself via sleeping for the last 8 hours or so. So you want to wake up and chug that water, and it helps you drink more water throughout your day. And then lastly, I'm huge on journaling. So 7 minutes every day of journaling, writing out, like what Mindy said, 3 to 5 things you're grateful for that are really specific, like not just, my house, my husband, my wife, whatever. You want to write out something that's a little bit more specific to that day. So you're constantly looking for more things to be grateful for. And then the second thing I do with the journaling is happy and blessed. Your happy and blessed are things that are not yet true, but you're speaking them into existence. So, like for me, for a long time, I would write, I'm happy and blessed that I'm married to the man of my dreams. We run a company together, and I don't know, I just had this whole list of things I was looking for in my husband. So I would write that every day, and then it wasn't true. And then I met him and it became true. So it's about speaking things into existence. I'm happy and blessed that. Okay, next, movement and exercise. I was a personal trainer for about 3 years, and I always had clients who were coming to me wanting to have the perfect body. It was all about looking good and all this. And the problem is, at the end of the day, that's not usually a good enough why to be moving your body. And, a doctor recommends 150 minutes of movement per week. Oh, I put 150 minutes a day. Need to fix the slide. 150 minutes a week. So you could break that up into 30 minutes, 5 days a week, etc. But getting clear on your why is really important, because if you are just doing it because you want to look good, a lot of times that doesn't get your butt out of bed at 6 a.m. But if you're doing it because you want to, you had a cousin or a grandpa or something that had a cancer or had high blood pressure, whatever it is, like thinking about that, I'm like, I don't want to carry that with me, these health problems. And so just get clear on that why, about why you're getting up early, and use that as your motivation. And I really challenge you to do what you enjoy as opposed to just doing what you think you should enjoy. Like if you hate running, like this girl who's running here, I hate running. And I do it every once in a while, like maybe 2 or 3 miles at most. But, I talk to people who are like, my biggest goal is to run a marathon, or I'm running my 10th marathon. And I think it's awesome. Like if you're a marathon runner, awesome. But if you're not, who cares? There's a lot of other things you can do that are activities. So it could be yoga, it could be weightlifting, it could just be going on a walk. And instead of having the all or nothing mentality of, oh, okay, well, I'll either do, an hour workout or I'll do nothing at all. How can you find the in between? How can you find, maybe it's only a 20-minute walk. Well, a 20-minute walk is better than nothing. That's what I always tell myself. It's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. So get yourself to do something, because something is better than nothing. And then lastly, creating a routine and getting accountability. If you always try to work out at night, but you know that after a long day of work, there's no way you're working out at night, then stop telling yourself you're going to do it at the end of the day and put it at the beginning of the day, because that's when you work out best, even though it sucks getting out of bed early. So be real with yourself, be honest. And once again, if you're thinking about goal setting, make a SMART goal. Make it really specific and write it down. You're 5 times more likely to achieve something if you write it down. So, I want to work out 4 days a week for 45 minutes per workout, and I'm going to work out, maybe I'm going to run 2 of the days, and I'm going to do a body weight workout the other 2 days. Whatever, make it super smart. And lastly, hydration. So you are supposed to be drinking half of your body weight per day in ounces. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you should be drinking 75 ounces of water per day. The main thing I always think about, like in this picture, it's clear and it's open. I think a lot of times if you put a water bottle that has a closed cap on your desk, you don't pick it up to drink it. And so I have found, for me and for all my clients, they share with me that they have better success of drinking the water if it's an open container like that, and if it's clear, so you actually keep seeing it. And then it's just kind of like a gut reaction, or a knee-jerk reaction is maybe the word, a knee-jerk reaction where you just keep picking it up while you're on phone calls or Zoom calls, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to twist off the lid or whatever. And lastly, you can track it in an app. So we put that also in that worksheet that we sent you guys in that email. But waterlogged is a great way to keep track of how much water you've drank every day, or just find a water bottle that and find out how many ounces it is, and tell yourself, I need 4 of these per day, and keep count. This is really important. I had a client one time who she was doing everything else. She was eating perfectly. She was working out. She was getting her sleep. She was doing all these things. And she's like, Janelle, I don't get it. I'm not seeing weight loss. And I was like, hmm, what about your water? How's water going? She's like, oh, I suck at drinking water, which is what most of my clients say. And I was like, well, how about this week? Let's just really focus on water. She lost 4 pounds that week, which I'm not saying you should have, quick weight loss, but it's because she was holding on so much that the water just rinsed her right out. And lastly, social media boundaries. This is something that I'm very passionate about. If you know anything about me and follow me on any form of social media, I talk about social media boundaries. I think it's so important to get off of Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever the kids are doing these days. Haven't jumped on that bandwagon yet, but a lot of times your anxiety can really be, amplified by looking at social media because you're comparing your life to everyone else's life, and it is exhausting. So I really encourage you to set time limits on your phone. That's something that I have in place. So I get reminders if I've gotten to my limit. So you could set like an hour limit per day or 30 minutes per day or whatever. You also can put limits on your phone on time. So maybe you put, before 8 a.m., I'm not on my phone, and after 7 p.m., I'm not on my phone. I have a client even last week who was telling me she's not able to sleep at night because she's scrolling through social right before she goes to bed. And not only is looking at a screen not very good for you right before bed, but also just thinking about the way you're stimulating your brain before you're trying to sleep. And then by the time you turn off your lights and turn off your phone and lay down, you're actually just thinking about everyone else's life, or you're thinking about your problems because you compared your life to someone else's life and all of that stuff. So I really encourage you to set boundaries. That goes along with the whole thing of not looking at your phone for the first 30 minutes of every day, so you can just focus on yourself. And I would encourage you to do it at night too, the last hour of your night. Just say, I don't look at my phone the last hour of each night. I don't check emails, or I don't check social. I don't do any of that stuff. I read books, or I take a bath. I do relaxing things for myself. And then the last one on here is just unfollow or hide people on your social that aren't serving you. If there's someone who's constantly posting stuff that even if it's good stuff, maybe it's good, but it just something weird bubbles up inside of you when you start seeing it, and you're like, why do I feel this? I feel this weird feeling. Maybe it's something in you. It's not their fault that you're feeling that, but you might want to hide I know on Instagram, and I think on every form of social media, you can hide people's profiles so you're not unfriending them or whatever. And that might be the healthy thing for you to do. And that's okay, because you have to have these boundaries so that you can take care of yourself before, worrying about what someone else thinks about you hiding their pictures from your view. So that is what I've got for that one. So our journaling exercise, we're going to give you guys a few minutes right now, about 2, to write down which one thing that you just heard that you really want to improve in your life. There's one thing that maybe you're like, ooh, the one that you're like, I don't really want to do that. Don't write down the one that's the easy one. Write down the one that's like, ouch. When you heard us talk about it, it pinged inside of you. What is your SMART goal? So SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. You can't just say, I want to walk more. No, how many minutes a week will you walk? Exactly, and what days, and get specific. And then lastly, how will you track it? Are you going to put it on your calendar? Are you going to use an app? We do have a tracking app for your goals on that worksheet. So if you're looking for a goal tracking app, you can write in water or exercise or whatever you're trying to track. So we're going to give you guys 2 minutes right now to go ahead and journal that out. And I'm going to play some relaxing music in the background just for you.
So we're at about the 2-minute mark. We're going to give you another minute just to wrap things up. But if you have identified what your goal is and you want to share it, feel free to pop it into the chat. We would love to see what y'all are coming up with.
Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. That's the highest form of accountability because we're going to read it and then you really have to do it. Yikes.
Locked in.
Oh, yes. We got one in.
7 to 8 hours of sleep. Good for you, Tara. Love it. Intentional with meditation and time to think. That is right up my alley, Janelle.
Janelle, how many minutes a day? Is there a way you can set a little bit more specificity around that? It doesn't have to be a certain time of day, but maybe just a certain amount of minutes.
Even 5 minutes a day, and consistency is really the important thing with meditation. So start small.
Yeah, 5 minutes even is a great way to start.
Kate's going to put her phone away from 9 to 9. I love it.
In another room, yes.
Perfect. And Natalie, move your body 30 minutes a day, half your body weight in water every day. Ooh, a boot camp.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, get in there and track it. Awesome. Okay, I think we're gonna move along to the next section. Those are some great goals. I love what you guys are coming up with. Okay, so we're gonna move on to relationships. Like I was saying earlier, with what we're experiencing in the world right now, I think that the danger is that our relationships will kind of go by the wayside because we are more isolated than we've ever been. And so we need to be a lot more intentional about our relationships. And the thing is that humans have an innate desire to be valued, supported, and to belong. In fact, one of the things that I learned is that when we are alone or when we're isolated or when we're rejected in our primitive sort of caveman brains, it actually triggers something to our body that we're alone and we're vulnerable. And so again, we have this kind of physiological response that's not healthy. It's that fight or flight stress that your body can kind of start to feel under the hood as we are feeling more and more isolated. And when we break ties or again, isolate from one another, it has a significant increase on things like depression. Strong connections, on the other hand, actually activates our brain's reward center, particularly, and I thought this was interesting, particularly if we know that someone needs our love and affection. And one of the things that I mentioned at the bottom of this slide is, our relationship with our community and thinking about ways that we can volunteer more and ways that we can do corporate outreach within our companies is really going to, number one, it's everybody wins, right? The community wins by the aid, the assistance, the things that we're doing them as individuals and as companies. But we also win because, again, it's triggering that reward center in our brain. It's helping us to stay connected to the world around us that we live in. So again, just really want to encourage you to be intentional. People are doing things very creatively, virtually. I've heard of virtual running clubs that people are doing. So, getting online and having virtual happy hours and regular FaceTime talks with your friends. All of those things are so important right now. The next kind of relationship that we want to talk about is our relationship with family. And say hello to my little family right there. That's my husband and my daughter. And the thing is, family is oftentimes our deepest relationship. That's not always true, but it's the group of people that we have the deepest and the longest history with. We have those ties of family that have been there since childhood. A lot of us have friendships that are like that, and that's fantastic. But it's important to have a home base, to have a place where you feel accepted and where you belong, kind of no matter what. Families, I think, too, is most often where we turn for support. If you think about times in your lives, I know for me, if I have a problem, if I have something that's going wrong, it's my family, maybe my sister who I want to call and talk something through with. And they're, so often in these times of crisis and in times of happiness and joy, it's the people that we want to share with, to brainstorm with, to experience things and to kind of go through life with. I did want to just talk about my situation with my mom and dad right now, because I think it's probably a lot of us who have parents who are elderly at this point. And my dad, in particular, I think since January 5th, he has spent 8 days not in the hospital. So he's only been able to be at home for 8 of those days. He's had 4 surgeries between the time between January 5th and like the middle of March, and most recently had 1 more surgery. This is all stuff that stems back to him having some faulty hip replacements, unfortunately. And they just about 3 weeks ago had to amputate his leg. Or one of his legs, which was a really difficult experience for the whole family to go through. And it's a really extreme experience to share with all of you, but I know that there are a lot of elderly people out there who we have in our lives that are spending time in hospitals right now, and we can't be there with them to hold their hands. So my family has really had to get creative about sending emails, looking up jokes, sending him funny YouTube emails and videos to watch to kind of keep his spirits up. My mom as well, she's been isolated alone while my dad's been in the hospital. And so for Easter, my husband and my daughter and I hopped in the car and drove over there, and we had a 20 feet apart Easter celebration where we just kind of sat outside and visited for a while. So really just encourage you to be creative and be intentional about those family relationships.
Okay, relationship with self. So I think this one can often seem a little woo woo or like hippie-ish, and it's really not. It's really not. Having a relationship with yourself is the number one most important relationship, like we talked about earlier. Putting on your breathing mask before anyone else's. Um, and a lot of what this comes down to is finding your identity and something that's not your job title. So often, my clients, I'll ask them to make a list. What are 20 things you love about yourself? And a lot of these women will write out lists like, I'm good at cooking, I'm good at cleaning, I'm a good mom, or I'm a good wife, or I'm a good coworker, I'm a good friend. And it's all about things that she does as opposed to who she is. And it's always a challenge to make that list of 20 things that she loves about herself, like attributes, like I'm patient, I'm kind, I'm outgoing, I'm whatever it is for you that is your best quality. So I would challenge each one of you listening right now to make a list of 20 things that you love about yourself and work on affirming that. It's not easy. Most people, I cannot tell you how many clients have texted me after they start this homework assignment and they're like, I can only think of three. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you have more than three amazing things. I could tell you 20 things I think are amazing about you and your character and who you are. But oftentimes we don't take the time to see that in ourselves. And one thing that can help with that is doing personality tests like the Enneagram, Myers Briggs, love languages. If you guys haven't done any of those, or if you haven't done one of them, I would recommend doing all three. I recently sat down and I wrote out my Enneagram type, which is an 8, my Myers Briggs, which is an ENFJ, and then my love languages, which is physical touch and words of affirmation. I think I did one other. Oh, yeah, Strength Finders. That one's also a very good one. And I wrote out all this stuff about me and just was like, who am I? Like, what do I love about myself? And what am I good at? And it's just affirming, and it helps with your career, it helps with your relationships with family and coworkers. So I really encourage you to make that list of 20 things. I think you'll find it to be a little more challenging potentially than you thought. And if you need help with it, reach out. I'd love to help you help create that list. Um, and I would say the other thing is spending time alone. When you spend time alone, you're able to think about, who am I? What was I created for? What is my purpose? What do I think about my life right now? Am I happy? Have I been feeling anxious, sad? What do I think of this quarantine? It's kind of weird. It's kind of crazy. It's a little weird seeing everyone with masks. It's allowing your brain to think. And so many people are afraid to spend time alone because of the fact that it is kind of scary to just think about spending a whole hour without your phone, without a person, just you, yourself, and you, just chilling. But it's so important. So important to spend that time alone, and it's kind of like meditation, except for I guess you're not like sitting and specifically trying to clear your brain. Instead, you're just allowing your brain to creatively float around and just think thoughts that it wants to think and creatively move around. And in that time, it's asking yourself, are you proud of who you are? And if you're not, what needs to change? Which direction do you want to be heading? And learning to trust yourself, learning to trust your judgment, learning to trust your voice, learning to trust that it's okay to think. We all think kind of crazy thoughts sometimes. We all have these weird thoughts. I mean, let's be real. Unless it's just me, which you know what, maybe it's just me, whatever. But I'm pretty sure we all do. All my clients share with me that they're like crazy. They're like, I feel like I'm a crazy person. It's like, you're not crazy. And give yourself grace to think these thoughts and build this relationship with yourself where you get to know yourself. Relationship with coworkers. Well, as you can see in these pictures, I kind of went for like what it used to be, which was a lot of in person, and then now what it's turning into, which is Zoom calls like these. And it has been an interesting transition, right? It's been a little bit different. And I think we all, in some ways, do miss that in person connection. And I do believe that a form of that will come back. But for now, this is what it is. And it's important to be communicating with your coworkers and supporting them. And also, it's really important to create boundaries. I was talking with a woman that is a friend of mine recently, and she was saying how she has this boss who will basically wait till the last minute to complete their projects, and she'll do it like till midnight the night before. And then my friend needs to be available because if the boss has any questions about what my friend has prepared, she needs to be available to answer it. So then she has to wait up till midnight because her boss waited till last minute, but my friend got the project over to her 3 days in advance. And my first reaction was like, well, have you communicated to her that this has been a reoccurring thing that happens every quarter, and that you don't like staying up till midnight? She has two small kids, and she didn't feel comfortable sharing that with her boss yet. And I think it's so important to be honest and straightforward, whether that's your boss, your coworker, any person. It doesn't matter if they're above or below or equal. It doesn't matter what hierarchy they are within the system of your company. Clear is kind. That's something Brene Brown says. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So when you are telling people, like your husband or your best friend, oh my gosh, my boss does this and this and this and this and this, and I can't stand it. Well, have you given them that feedback in a kind, respectful way so that they know what they're doing? Because they might not even know. So it's not fair of you to talk behind their back about what they're doing that frustrates you if you've never even gone to the source and actually had that conversation of, hey, when you wait till the night before and I have to stay up till midnight with my small kids and stuff, that really puts a lot of strain on me. The night of, I'm not going to be available after 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. for questions, whatever it looks like, setting that boundary. The other thing I'll touch on is oftentimes during crazy times like the quarantine, which this is pretty unprecedented, but people either they support everyone. They're like, I'll call, every friend, every family member, every coworker, I am supporting everyone. Or they just kind of go in their shell and they don't really want to talk to people. They just kind of want to be alone. And we all have different ways of dealing with conflict, but I would just say, try to find somewhere in the middle of those. You don't need to be everyone's hero. You can't help everyone. But also if you're pulling back and trying to be alone, ask yourself, like maybe I could open up to someone, or maybe I could support someone, and just creating the space. Okay. So journaling, I want you to write down 3 things you've done really well this quarantine. 3 things you're really proud of yourself for. And then write down 3 passions or hobbies that you'd like to nurture during this time. So that could be more baths or face masks or reading, and etc. And then lastly, write down the name of 3 people that are your top priority, and how are you going to build your connection with them during this time? Who are your 3 people?
We are running just a little bit short on time, so we may make this one a little shorter than the last one, but obviously you can continue this work after the workshop today. But once you do start to get some things solidified, again, feel free to pop them into the comments, or the chat, I should say.
Yeah, let's say write in the chat 3 things you've done really well during this quarantine. So that way it's a little more specific. Or even just one. What is one thing you're proud of yourself for during this quarantine?
Okay, see, Natalie here is staying positive, staying connected, and staying motivated. High five, Natalie. Tara's been eating mindfully. That's a big one. I know a lot of people who are struggling with that right now. Moving each day and, picking up all the old pine needles. That sounds
It's
like
gotta feel
fun.
good. It's probably one of those tasks you've been putting off. So now you conquered it.
Chanel moved homes. Holy cow. That's so Janelle can relate to that. Worked on your relationships, being grateful for everything. Love it. Haley, staying active, eating healthy, staying organized. Those are three really big ones to all be doing well right now. Good for you. All right, well, let's go ahead and move to our last section. Again, I really hope that y'all will continue these journaling exercises after the fact. So what we want to talk about now that we've talked about our health and we've talked about our relationships, we want to now talk about staying productive and profitable. So the first thing that I think is really important, particularly in times of crisis, is to control the controllable, right? So often when adversity strikes and something goes wrong, we feel very out of control. And so I think that one of the things that you can do is really audit what is within your span of control and what isn't. And what's out of your control might be scary, but the anxiety and the fear that you might be feeling are often tied to kind of hypothetical outcomes that are wrapped up in the stories that we're telling ourselves. And I've been guilty of this. Something goes wrong, we're scared, we're anxious, and we're feeling out of control. And as human beings, I think that one of our natural tendencies is to try to make sense of what's happening in our minds and to try to make sense of how it's going to turn out so that we can maybe even get comfortable with what that outcome is. But in the process, we're making things up and we're telling ourselves stories about what's true and what isn't true. And that is really destructive. You've got to get to the point where if it's something that's out of your control, you have to have faith in whoever is in control of that thing and the idea that they will handle it. So oftentimes in work type situations, this might be a coworker, it might be a manager, it might be a partner in some other organization. And so that's, again, all of this stuff that we've been talking about is so intertwined, and it goes back to keeping those relationships with your coworkers, your family, whoever it might be, keeping those relationships strong. And in that process, it's a lot easier to trust and to have faith that whoever's job this other thing over here in left field is, that they're going to take care of it. So you're right now, we've got strength in numbers. And, just like Janelle said, this is an unprecedented time. There's nothing else I can think of that I've ever certainly witnessed personally, but nothing else that I can think of where the same really significant adversity, not just a tiny adversity, but something really huge, is affecting every single person on this planet at the same time. And so with that, I think that we can find that if we look at it with the right perspective, we can find that strength in numbers, and we can find that people right now, again, because of the uncertainty of things and the way that so many people's businesses have taken a downward turn, you're going to find that people are more willing than ever to partner and to cooperate. And so now is a great time to really think outside the box for your company. Think of new products, think of new services, things that are going to work not just now, but that are going to create new revenue streams and things on into the future after this immediate crisis is over.
Yeah, and I just want to say before we move on to the next slide, we're basically at time. So if someone does have to leave, we completely want to respect your time. Please feel free to head off. We'll be wrapping this up in the next 10 minutes. So if you still have 10 minutes, feel free to join us for the next 10. If not, both Mindy and I are here for you for support. So if you guys are heading off, just know, reach out to us. We can schedule a coaching call with either of us, so that way we can help coach you through your goals and getting started on everything that you talked about today. So thank you guys for your time, and thanks for bearing with us for running over a little bit here.
Okay, the next one in the world of staying productive, staying profitable is structure and focus. And it may seem obvious, but in order to remain productive, we do need some elements of structure to our day. You know, if you think about old world versus new world, old world when we were going into the office, you know, and sitting physically at a desk in an office, in a business building or an office building, there was a lot more structure to that kind of life than there maybe is today. And it can honestly be kind of a mixed blessing, because you can do things in between your buckets of work, like throw in a load of laundry or cook a meal for your family, things like that. And so taking a minute to really see the blessings in disguise with being at home right now, and being grateful for those things. But there are also a lot of things that can be distractions and interruptions. And we want to make sure that, you know, the things that really are unconstructive distractions and interruptions, things like social media, things like Netflix, you know, we want to make sure that we're minimizing those things as best we can. But we all know that, you know, with so many of you who might be homeschooling, you know, things like that, have small kids at home, whatever the case may be, there will be distractions and interruptions. We just want to do our best at anticipating those things and making sure that we deal with them. And then scheduling tasks and work blocks. I'm a huge scheduler, and I live and die by my calendar. In addition to scheduling things like meetings and phone calls, I schedule tasks, I schedule work blocks, and I make sure to have time carved out so that I can get all of the work done that I need to do. Habits, also very important, like Janelle talked about with a morning routine. If you have a good constructive morning routine that sets you up for success, that's something that can be super, super helpful. And then lastly, if we move to the next slide, productivity. So scheduling tasks for when you're the most productive. I was also kind of surprised to hear that this is all sort of driven by hormones and our circadian rhythms. And according to some of the research, our natural tendency for our brains to be the most productive happens between 2.5 and 4 hours after waking up. So again, you know, not a perfect science, but you know, keeping that in mind as a general rule, and then also knowing yourself along with that. And when you are the most productive, scheduling your time that way is going to be really helpful. The one thing, so I love when I'm planning out my week to look for the one thing as I'm making to-do lists and things that I want to get done this week. I look for the one thing that's going to make the most impact on my business. And so identifying that thing helps you kind of structure the rest of your work so that, you know, maybe 20% of your tasks, or, you know, the one thing, and then maybe other supporting tasks are things that are going to generate the most value in your life and invest your energy in those things. My husband has a trick where I call it one more thing. I also heard Ed Milet talk about that this weekend. So my husband's in good company, but they have this concept where if they're going to go take a break, or if they're going to log off for the day, they tell themselves, I'm going to do one more thing. And then they finish that thing before they get the reward of a break or lunch or logging off for the day. Take breaks. Obviously, you need to recharge your body, your mind, walk away from your computer, go outside, get some fresh air. Make sure that you're taking those breaks. It can be easy if you're kind of nose to the grindstone and knee deep in all kinds of work to let that go by the wayside, but it is important. And then again, I already mentioned Janelle's morning routine recommendations.
Okay, and in closing here, we're going to talk about innovation and creativity. I saw this on LinkedIn about Sir Isaac Newton, and it says that he was staying home from the University of Cambridge because of the bubonic plague. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. And during that time, he was sitting in his garden and he was just peacefully existing there and watched an apple fall from a tree. And that is how he ended up developing his theory in gravity. And I think what's so beautiful about that is realizing it's not that he was sitting down and trying to think, it's not like, I mean, he wasn't at his computer, obviously, but he wasn't like, I need to figure this out. I need to think of a problem to solve, like blah, blah. He was sitting in silence and he was just existing and he was thinking. And then the apple fell and he thought, I wonder how that apple fell. There's got to be some sort of a theory about how that apple comes straight down, and all these types of things. And so I think when work gets to be to this place where it's a lot and you feel stressed and you feel anxiety and you feel all these negative emotions, at least for me, a lot of times I very much want to just keep working. Like I'm like, I just want to press through this because I need to finish, I need to do this. But a lot of times the best course of action is actually to take a step away and to actually get quiet or to get somewhere else and just maybe even take like a 5 or 10 minute nap or something, or just take a shower, whatever it is to help clear your mind. And I was watching a class on Masterclass by Sarah Blakely, who started Spanx. And she says that you should have a thinking spot, like a spot that you always go that your best thoughts come to you. So for her, it's driving. She thought of the name Spanx while she was at a red light. It just like came to her. And now when she leaves for work, well, probably not during the quarantine, but before the quarantine, she would get in her car and drive an extra hour all around, even though she only lives a mile or two from her office, because that hour gives her time to think and process and create and innovate. For me, it's the shower. I always have brilliant ideas in the shower. And so it makes me like, I've started to keep a journal by my shower so that I can be like, I just thought of something and I write it down. So where do you get your best ideas? Where do you have these aha moments? Is it on walks without your phone? Is it in the shower? Is it driving? And go do those things. Even if you don't have anywhere to walk to, or you don't even really need to shower, just get in there and do it so you can start thinking and innovating and creating. And lastly, you got to share those ideas. If you just write it down, but you don't take the courage and vulnerability to share them, unfortunately, no one will ever hear them. So you got to actually share your ideas, whether that be with your family, with management, like any spectrum, have the courage to share that idea. And problem solving. So thinking about companies who are innovating during this time, you think about restaurants, they're really having to innovate with only doing takeout and how do they create, happy hours and being able to take alcohol out of the establishment and all these other types of ideas. We have adapted to this time. We would have never felt like we were ready for this, but we are ready. We're always ready for new things that come at us, even though it's not easy. And so I tie that into, I'm huge into applying for promotions or applying for jobs that you're not qualified for, because at the end of the day, if you never apply for it, there's no way you could even get it. And just like COVID, we weren't ready for this. You could apply for a job that you don't feel completely ready for. Maybe you only have half or 3/4 of the qualifications, but then you just got to take that leap of faith and you just got to tell yourself, I'm going to figure it out. I've always figured it out before. And it's choosing to have the mindset of everything is figure outable. I will figure it out. I'm the type of person who figures stuff out. And keep repeating that to yourself as you do this problem solving and innovating and creating and sharing these ideas with the world or sharing these ideas with your company, because your voice matters, right? And that's why I have the little sticky note in the corner that says, believe in yourself, which is kind of this like cheesy thing. But at the end of the day, it's actually so true. It's not even as cheesy as you think. It's if you believe that your ideas matter, if you believe that you matter, if you believe that you are worthy and created for a purpose, then you're going to be more likely to share these ideas with the world unashamedly, because no idea is a bad idea. And that's how big ideas come about, is from thinking crazy ideas and thinking wild ideas. So one last thing I'll say on this is, I know an entrepreneur that I heard speak once. Every day he writes out 5 to 10 problems that he sees throughout his day, whether that's like a door not closing correctly or his coffee getting cold on a walk. And he tries to think of solutions for every single problem that he has, even if they're little ones. And he writes down the solution to every problem, which gets his brain into a place of problem solving and then creating a solution. And I think that's really important. So we have this journaling exercise here. Because we're already 10 minutes over, we're just going to have you go ahead and take a screenshot of this. And also we're going to send this out to everyone because it was recorded. So go ahead and take a picture of this if you can on your phone or a screenshot or something like that, or you can jot it down. Identify the biggest obstacle that your company or department is facing, and then brainstorm some creative, outside of the box, potentially even crazy ideas that might help solve that problem. There's no bad ideas here. And then lastly, how could solving this problem now help your company continue to evolve beyond the COVID timeframe? So go ahead and jot that down. Can everyone give me like a thumb? I guess some of you are on camera or not. Did you guys get a chance to take a picture of it or jot it down? Okay, cool.
We can
Awesome.
probably also send out this deck. Janelle, what do you think?
Yeah, that's true. We can send this out too.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Perfect. Lisa says, I got it. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for your time and participation. We really appreciate it. And
so much.
yeah, this was so much fun. So yeah, go ahead and schedule your free coaching call with Mindy or myself, or both of us if you want free coaching calls. And you can reach out to us at the emails listed below, or you can head to our websites, whatever is best, or yeah, email us, text us, whatever. Schedule that call. And Mindy, do you have anything else to say?
No, just that I appreciate everyone's time so much. I know that everybody's busy, and the fact that you chose to be here today and invest some time in yourself, I think is fantastic. So thank you. And just let us know if there's any way that we can continue to support you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mindy, for doing this. It was really fun doing it together as well.
Thank you, Janelle. I loved it.
I loved it too. Have a great rest of your day, you guys. Thanks for being here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.